Yeah, and he did that in the round. We've got a bit more traditional today. But shows how flexible the building is. I'm Andrew Bounds, I'm the North England correspondent of the Financial Times. For those of you in the North East, I don't come from the North East, that's why you won't recognise me. We have another dedicated correspondent up there, so I do the rest of the Northern Powerhouse. And I've been doing it since 2008. I also cover enterprise and small business and tech and so on, which is probably another reason I'm pleased to be involved in this panel. We've got a stellar class on my left, I'll introduce in a minute. They're each going to talk for a few minutes about their chosen theme, and then we hope to get a discussion going. I think we're all agreed that innovation is absolutely vital to the future of the North, as it was to its past. Philip, in his opening address today, mentioned pockets of light across the region where world-class things are happening and new things are happening. And in my job, every week I'm going to new businesses, universities, councils that are doing things in a different way. And I genuinely think there is a huge amount of innovation going on. It's just a question of joining it up and producing a scale. The example I always love to use is James Cropper up in Cumbria, who was starting out as a paper mill, still makes paper, posh paper for whiskey packaging and things like that, and perfumes. But they knew that that wasn't enough to survive against Chinese competition and so on. So the reason they're one of the last two British paper mills left is that they innovated and they now make parts of aeroplanes as well, using a similar process they used to make paper, just with different materials. So it's applying the know-how from one thing to another. And you see it in businesses all over the North, not just manufacturing, but online and so on as well. On my left is Onwurah, who is a Member of Parliament for Newcastle upon Tyne Central, and the Shadow Minister for Culture and Digital Economy. So she's got a long history of working in tech and innovation, and worked off Ofcom for some time, encouraging those things. She's a Shadow Minister, not a member of the Shadow Cabinet, I'd like to make clear. And I think that position will still be true by the end of this debate. But she's got and to her left is Rob Mukherjee, who's head of the North West Regional Business for Vodafone. I don't think Vodafone needs any introduction, but obviously they're a key facilitator of innovation by providing platforms for people to communicate with each other. Sadly, no longer sponsor Man United, but no point asking him for an invitation, but they did for a while and probably put their name certainly on the map in this part of the world and around the world.
Wouldn't be able to know my choice.
And to his left we have Claire Braithwaite, who's the tech advisor at the Manchester Growth Company. Claire again has a long history of working in the tech sector, and she was the first head of Tech North, which was London's acceptance that the north of England was where the tech revolution was really happening. And she's now working in Manchester with Tech Businesses, which is the second largest digital cluster in the country by number of people working there. And to her left, we have from Sheffield City Council Mark Tuckett, who's the Assistant Director of Public Service Reform. And a key part of devolution has been how to reform public services and deliver them better and reduce things being done twice, like 3 to 4 times sometimes by 4 different people. And so he's going to explain a little bit about what he's doing and how that's translating across the North. So I'm going to ask Chi to open up, if you can. Thank you.
Great, and thank you very much, Andy. And it is a fantastic to be here. It's a fantastic, beautiful view. And for those of you who have come today hoping to learn how we can best realise the Northern Powerhouse, we'll be happy to hear that in the Northeast we have been there, done that, got the t-shirts. The Northern Powerhouse was forged in the Industrial Revolution. It may be something that Messrs Osborne and Cameron are just beginning to get their head around, but they always were a little slow. And then it comes to manufacturing and industry. The Northeast is the only UK region with a positive balance of trade, and we were and we remain the only region with a trade surplus with the European Union. And we are, despite the vote of Brexit, we are an outward-looking progressive region, and we will need progressive and outward-looking negotiations in order to make sure that the EU's feel secured is the best for the North East. And we already have an ideas culture. We are leading the way in digital hub, as well as emerging green industries with the group companies such as the Reese Group, you may not have heard of, but recently reopened the historic Armstrong Works in Eltic in my constituency. And the number of tech businesses in the North East jumped up last year by 9.2%, which was the highest in the country outside of London. So clearly the people of the North East are already creative, innovative and entrepreneurial. And so I would say that what we need now is a state and a regional structure that is equally entrepreneurial. And as the economist Mariana Mazzucato says in her book, The Entrepreneurial State, which I really do recommend, states should not simply be about making room or getting out of the way so that we have innovation. They should be entrepreneurial themselves. They should lead on innovation and drive inclusive growth. And I don't think that sounds like the current government to anybody in this room. And they should also not be shy to get involved and take risks. Then regional structures need to do the same. And that means investing in the infrastructure that will support collaboration and drive economic growth across the north. Because we do have an issue of critical mass. We need trains extending beyond Manchester and Leeds. This afternoon, I'm actually on my way to a conference in Nottingham this afternoon. It was equally easy to come by Manchester, to be honest with you, given that I'm going to Newcastle I'm going up to Newcastle. The infrastructure across the North East is so lamentable. And we also need broadband, better digital infrastructure to support innovative business models, encouraging collaboration and promoting international trade. Sage, which is still unfortunately the only top 10 FTSE company to be headquartered in the North East, they deliver business services to small businesses. They tell me that 70% of their business, small business customers, say that digital is even more important to them than physical transport. And we have 130,000 businesses in the north which still have to make do with inadequate internet connections. So, investing in infrastructure and skills makes good economic sense. Now, someone recently said to me, how can we save the north? Once I'd mastered the impulse to punch him in the face, my response would be, you could save it by stopping strangling it, would be a start. The north is not a problem to be solved. We should instead be asking how the north can help save the rest of the country. And that's not only because I was brought up in Newcastle and I know it's the best place in the world, it's because it makes good economic sense. The OECD study on regional growth found that it makes better economic sense, despite what the Treasury mandarins will say, to invest in those regions which are less developed than to focus on areas that are already overdeveloped. So a stronger north would deliver great benefits to the rest of the country. And that same OECD study highlighted that the single parameter most correlated with regional growth is skills, which is why it's so important that the South stops leaching our skilled people from the North, and particularly the Northeast, and that we focus on bringing skills, improving skills, and particularly through lifelong learning, because acquiring skills shouldn't be something that if you haven't got by the time you're 18, you've missed out for your entire life. And that needs to fit in with the growing industries in the North. So to drive this, finally, government has to be prepared to take risks, to recognise the importance of basic infrastructure and skills, and to look further north than Manchester when it comes to driving the Northern Powerhouse. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you even kept your own time, which is brilliant. Your own time.
Technology.
Really great. So, yeah, nice to have a perspective from, other parts of the north. Let's be clear, we're here for one north. Rob, northwest.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And I'm going to take on the whole of the north as well, not just the northwest. So my role is head of regional business for North West for Vodafone, and that kind of covers everything from Cumbria, Lancashire, Merseyside, West Manchester, down through Deeside, Cheshire, and North Staffordshire as well. And it's quite a new model actually for Vodafone in terms of that regionalisation, which I'll come on to in a moment. But in terms of innovation, well, I was doing an interview with a telecoms journal a few months ago, and they asked me, who's your role model? And I instinctively said, Robert Noyce, who was kind of the man and founder of Intel. And he was all about innovation, and he and his partners, known as the treacherous eight, because in that time they dared to challenge the convention and the establishment. They created in this little bit of California something that became obviously a worldwide hub for industry and innovation, as we all know, and Sheffield obviously being everything there in Silicon Valley. And in my role, which I've been doing now for 4 months actually, heading Vodafone's North West business, I often try to reflect on the approach that Robert Noyce took to innovation. So, does Vodafone believe in technological innovation? Of course it does. Has Vodafone spent a couple of £1 billion over the last few years on its fixed and mobile network because it believes that's where digital innovation lies in terms of the platform? Yes, it does. And I'm excited about the opportunities that our technology can bring in terms of helping to enable businesses, communities, cities and its citizens. Absolutely, and I can talk about shaving an hour off every shift for a police officer or for a nurse. We can talk about how we can use technology to ensure that SMEs are contactable wherever or whenever they want to be. We can talk about the Internet of Things and how we can use that to propel cities from an analog age into a digital age, etc., etc. And I can talk for hours, as Jean referred to, about the technological gaps that still remain amongst businesses and communities across the north. But I think it's essential to remember that innovation is more than just about technology. And if we go back to Robert Noyce, it's not just his invention of the microchip that transformed the world, it's his approach to leadership and the new business culture he brought that Silicon Valley became famous for, an approach that says, take risks over stability, take openness over hierarchy, and take a more relaxed, more open, less structured approach that then encourages contribution from everybody, which I guess today we call collaboration, yeah? And, he took that approach not because he was incentivized to do so, but because he believed it was the right thing to do and because he wanted to. He believed it was the right thing to do. Now, innovation through collaboration is where we at Vodafone are putting a huge focus at the moment. And 4 months ago, hence me being in this role, Vodafone Enterprise took a pretty bold decision to devolve authority into 8 regions across the UK, including mine, the North West, and including North Eastern Yorkshire, which is run by my colleague Chris. And through that we now have a strategic hub in Manchester, home to 800 colleagues, strategic one in Leeds, home to 500, one in Stoke, home to 1100, and across those sites, over the next 6 months, we'll grow by another 150 to 200 people. So as far as Vodafone in the north is concerned, we're kind of booming. And what this regionalisation, the evolution to the north enables us to do is, we've now got a regional board for Vodafone for the northwest, encompassing the head of networks for the north, encompassing senior management from product, from commercial, from operations, from service, etc. And what that enables to do is, various things, but to name a couple, it means we can, as a business, get closer to our customers, our citizens, our communities, the third sectors in our area, and really understand their challenges, and really humbly, hopefully, learn from them, and then make a difference. Excuse me. And then respond more quickly to their needs. And the other thing it enables us to do, which I think is very relevant today, it enables us, as a regional board, to set out our vision and our strategy for Vodafone of the North, which is something up till 4 months ago we never had the opportunity to do, and we now have the authority and freedom to do that. which I have to admit, when I learned only in January this was going to happen, and when our UK director offered me this role, I actually never thought that a big corporate like Vodafone would do this. And I hope that we see lots more big corporates like Vodafone doing this, because I think it would be really powerful. And this enables us to work collaboratively within our business, cross-functional teams that can then come up with big ideas and quickly put them into action. And to encourage that collaboration culture, Vodafone recently put 120 of its senior leaders through a 3-day collaborative leadership programme, working closely with a charity. So the group I went on was with the Newcastle Lung Cancer Foundation, some of you may know, based in Liverpool. And we worked on a real-life challenge, very close to the heart of that charity, and actually came up with some pretty transformational solutions for those charities. And as the 120 of us left those various workshops, we can come back into the business armed with some new learnings and methodologies in terms of collaborative leadership to drive innovation. And what that enables us to do is drive collaboration and innovation not just in our own business, but we can help other businesses do it as well. And what we do, quite regularly, we invite into our Manchester, Leeds, Stoke offices customers and businesses, absolutely free of charge. It's, on an individual basis, we'll say, we will do an innovation workshop with you in an environment where you as a customer will bring various decision makers from your business. We will bring some innovation experts from Vodafone, and we'll use it as an environment to germinate fresh ideas and challenge a customer's current thinking, and eventually come up with new transformational business opportunities that are really personalised for that business. And the beautiful thing we find is that great ideas just start out as simple conversations, powered by different perspectives and different opinions, and when they're shared in the right context, they grow into really innovative solutions. And it often starts with just 2 words: what if? What if we're able to help drivers avoid congestion? That was a real question that was asked in one of these scenarios. And what came out was, well, actually you can use mobile data mapped against roads and therefore see which are the less busy routes to point people to. Another one was, what if reporting tools, which are not particularly exciting, but what if reporting tools could be made into a game? And actually out of that, what we did for this customer, we brought in a games designer to redesign the way that they would handle thousands of invoices through an intuitive and user-friendly dashboard. It's all about what if. And just last week, the most recent one we've done was with Manchester Airport group just last Tuesday. And earlier this week, thinking about our brief today, I was having a chat with a couple of the other senior leaders who've also been through this collaborative leadership program. I said, well, what if, rather than Vodafone using these innovation workshops and this collaborative leadership approach just within our own business and with individual customers, what if we were able to try and help facilitate that collaboration across businesses, business leaders, community leaders, councils across the north? What if we could do that? What if we could get that power for the north? And just to finish on, I'm trying to set my kind of tone for this. I think, as we've heard today, when we talk about the Northern Powerhouse, of course we often reflect, and quite rightly, on our great history, and also on some of the challenges we've faced in our more recent history. And if I can indulge one more time in a quote, or what I'd like to call a rallying cry from Robert Noyce that I really believe in. He said, "Don't be encumbered by history, go off and do something wonderful." That would be like what I'd finish.
Thank you very much. Your decision to split the business, what do you think was the key behind that? Was it the Northern Powerhouse, or was it this increased focus on the North, or was it just something internal?
Yeah, so we actually did a small experiment in Leeds. What we recognised was that the way Vodafone was structured before this said, here's a part of the business that looks after all our large customers, here's a part of the business that looks after the public sector, here's a part of the business that looks after SMEs and mid-market, let's say. You never, that way, could really get close to a community. And it was all business by business, not really holistic, not really seeing the whole. So what we did, we said, let's try something in Leeds, and we effectively set up a MD of Leeds for a period. And the reaction we got from local businesses, local communities, was really beautiful and humbling, and they stopped seeing us as an arrogant, ivory tower type company. That actually you have got real people who care about what we're trying to do locally. And we said, at first the decision was said, well, actually, let's regionalise for SME. And then our enterprise director and our head of HR took really both steps and said, do you know what, if we believe in it, we're going to believe in it. And we did it for the whole of enterprise. So that's how we started.
I mean, as a journalist, it's interesting as well how companies communicate, because a lot of multinational companies don't communicate particularly well locally, I think. You know, and they're seen as remote, and part of this vote, you know, to leave the EU, I think, was a reaction to people feeling these companies aren't accountable to me and my community, even though they employ people there and all those sort of, but that's another discussion. So we'll move on to Claire from Manchester Growth Company.
Okay, so thank you, Andy. So this session is creating and inspiring a culture of innovation. I think it's important to outline where we are currently in the world, which is actually, we're an incredibly innovative part of the world. We do have global companies, we do kind of have comparable industry to London. You know, often in the tech world, we get very much focused on London, the conversation around London, and post-Brexit is just another example. We've got people like Rowan Silver calling for London-only visas, which is just, I don't know what to say. You know, and you know, why is it important that we have a very strong, powerful voice in the innovation conversation, the tech conversation? Because this is about our future. So if you look at where are jobs being produced, so jobs are being produced in the digital tech sector at 10 times the rate of other sectors across the north. On average, salaries are 60% higher in the tech digital sector than in other sectors across the north. Productivity is increasing at 4 times the rate of the average economy. This is where our future lies in innovation and technology. And you know, we have the building blocks. I think this is what's exciting. I was with a big fund that was over from the US looking to invest in the north. And the question they repeatedly wanted to find out, do we have this entrepreneurial spark here? Absolutely yes. That's what you need for an innovation culture, and we have that in spades. But are we doing everything we could be to be allowing that entrepreneurial talent to really build the biggest, strongest kind of global companies they can? And I'm not sure that we are. You know, when I speak to businesses and we look at the research that's done, the biggest challenges are around accessing talent and also accessing finance. So if we look at accessing finance to start with, you know, we suffer across the north in the same way that we do across multiple different areas by this fragmentation. So because we don't have the one voice, investors find it very hard to find deal flow. They find it very hard to find companies to invest in. And so what we tend to find is companies will bootstrap for much longer than in London. And it's a lot harder for them to get that early stage capital. So we need to start looking at how we as the North can build these collaborative platforms that entrepreneurs can find and that investors can find, so that they can find the talent to invest in. The other thing is around talent and how we have talent that can come into our businesses. And I think we have underinvested in the North. It's disappointing to see that the narrative around the Northern Powerhouse remains very much focused on transport infrastructure, and that we haven't really looked at how we can unlock a significant amount of funding for people. We've got Michael Taylor, I've just seen in the audience here, so actually MMU are doing some really interesting work around how we can be creating a talent pipeline that is fit for 21st century businesses. So MMU have pioneered a degree apprenticeship program, and they're working very closely with corporates and innovators in the region to develop curricula and courses that are generating talent that is ready for our workforce. And that's been mooted by government, but we need to see a lot more of this, and we need much more ambitious kind of investment into these kind of programs. So our challenge is how we not only grow talent, but retain it in the region and attract it. So yeah, a call for more investment skills and greater collaboration to attract investment.
Just a quick supplementary to that. The thing that strikes me is obviously companies tend to moan about, there's a lack of people, there's not enough talent around. I mean, do you think, both of you as representatives of business, like, you know, there's a role for businesses. Businesses have to do a bit more now, especially if we leave the EU and you can't just import Estonian software programs anymore, or whatever it might be. You know,
it's push and pull. So I mean, Michael said in the front row here, we'll have more experience of that. But I think there is a responsibility on business now to be actually getting involved in how we are developing talent and making sure we retain it. I mean, an interesting discussion about a week ago where Salford Uni was saying companies in London are coming and picking up their talent at the beginning of the year. Northwest companies are not getting engaged until much later in the year. So, you know, I think we need to be pulling together more as a business community and engaging with education. But, you know, innovation and technology is kind of, is to many extents breaking our traditional educational models where, you know, universities will develop lovely kind of interesting degree course, but it's not kind of moving with the times and with the requirements of business. So yeah, you can't complain about it, but not involved in the solution, I think.
There's definitely more businesses can do. Again, if I reflect on Vodafone, if I go back a few years, I remember I'd be called, Rob, can you come and help on a graduate programme? Because we've got all these graduates coming through in Newcastle. That's kind of, you know. But now it's very different. We have a lot of graduates coming through into Manchester, into Leeds, into Stoke, and you know, Lintus and Claire was talking about one conversation about in my club dinner last night. You know, we're pretty good now at keeping local graduates in Manchester. One who sat in the back there, Michaela, was a student at NMU a few years ago. You know, originally from Blackpool, came to NMU, and now has stayed in Manchester. And actually, we're going through our next round of where our year one graduates want to do their second year placement, which starts in September. And I'm having my door bound down by not just people in Manchester, but actually a couple of people from down south who like the idea of coming and living and working in a great northern city as a young person, which links to some of the stuff that was talked about this morning in terms of being one of the most vibrant areas of the country. So I've seen a big change over the last 4 years or so.
And Chief, what would you do if you were in government skills?
Well, what we'd be looking to do is just on that. My first job out of university, electrical engineering degree, was a company called Northern Telecom, Nortel. I remember when I told my mum in Newcastle that I'd been, given a job by Northern Telecom. She said something like, "Oh, that's great, you'll be coming back home with them." I had to explain to her that Northern Telecom was actually Northern Hemisphere, and that this was the 80s, and there wasn't significant engineering recruitment in the northeast at that time. And I hope that is what we need to change. I mean, it's been a long time, but I think what Claire was saying is absolutely right. And I think so. Just in terms of investing in skills, devolving skills budgets to the local economic partnerships, so that there can be a closer correlation between what employers like. I believe employers do need to do more, because you can't expect everyone to come to university or into your apprenticeship programs to be absolutely work ready. But I think that the state, the infrastructures also need to be working closely with employers and looking forward to what the skills requirements are in the future. That's what a state can do. And just to also, very importantly, adult education and lifelong learning, because the nature of business is changing, the nature of economic structure is changing, we're living longer, which is a good thing, but we need to be able to change and develop skills throughout. We're all going to be working till we're 70, so let's keep on developing skills throughout our careers.
Thank you. Right. So we'll turn to Mark from Sheffield City Council.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you for the opportunity to talk today. I was actually brought up and educated in Manchester, as you may be able to tell from my accent. Like some of the people who spoke earlier on, I left Manchester and via London, Zambia and Christchurch, New Zealand, came back to the north. Like Chi, I also live in the best city in the world, except mine's called Sheffield. And I'm not going to talk about Sheffield's proud history of innovation, the fact that we're currently building the most technologically advanced factory in the world in Factory 2050, and very much at the forefront of both nationally and internationally in terms of advanced manufacturing, materials and metal science. And I thought it would be a bit unwise to come to Manchester and talk about football, but I will quickly make the point that Sheffield has the oldest football club in the world, in Hallam FC, and was the city that first codified the rules of association football. What I'm going to talk about is urban innovation, and a programme that we've undertaken in Sheffield over the last 18 months to find and nurture new innovative ideas to long-standing, often seemingly intractable challenges that face city government. And so we're going to talk about a programme called Sheffield Smart Lab. It's something that we've run in conjunction with Ferrovial Services and their daughter company, Amy, with whom Sheffield has a 25-year road and upgrade and maintenance contract. And somewhat innovatively, I'm going to talk about three things. I'm going to explain what we've done, I'm going to talk about where we've got to now, but then very much picking up the theme and the challenge that Philip set us this morning, talk about where we're going next. So in terms of what we've done, I became aware 2-3 years ago about the approach that some cities around the world, and in particular Barcelona actually, were taking in terms of opening up some of the challenges that they face, publicising those challenges, and inviting solutions from wherever they may come to address those particular challenges. And as my chief exec puts it, we in Sheffield have got some big problems, but we've also got a pretty big budget too. We've got a £1.4 billion budget, and we are in the market for solutions. And so Sheffield Smart Lab publicises some of those problems, and then we award a prize to the ideas that come forward, the most innovative, most impactful ideas that come forward through that particular process. The prize isn't a cash prize, and we've been very careful not to do that. The prize is that we are doing everything that is within our power to give those entrepreneurs, to give those individuals the opportunity to get that solution on the ground in Sheffield, so that they can then demonstrate to us, and they can demonstrate to new potential customers what impact their solution might have. So in effect, we're bringing entrepreneurs their first and a very significant potential customer, and it is just potential. So we brought together public organisations in the city, private companies too, both universities, and we prioritised a set of challenges, and we settled on two. Firstly, how could we support elderly people to live independently for longer and avoid them becoming housebound? And secondly, what could we do to re-energise the city centre of Sheffield? And so we proactively sought solutions out from around the world, and we whittled down 51 submissions into 9 winning entries, which we announced in December, 6 months or so ago. So that's what we've done. In terms of where we are now, we've been nurturing them, we've been supporting the organisations, the entrepreneurs, with access to commissioners, access to budget holders, giving them a real grounding in Sheffield so that they can tailor their solution to the exact arrangements that they find on the ground. We've included free subsidised accommodation, so we've got office facilities provided by both universities, and in general we've nurtured those organisations to bring their solutions to reality. And I'm very pleased to say that we're now in the implementation phase. These sorts of things start to come to life when you've got a sense of what it is we're talking about. So I'm going to give you a flavour of 3 of the organisations that have gone through this process. So Give and Take Care is backed by £1 million of Innovate UK money. It's led by the inspirational 88-year-old Professor Sir Heinz Wolff. And that idea is going to galvanise a completely new way of financing and volunteering for personal care markets in adult social care. And they're intending to launch within Sheffield, but it's going to be something nationwide. Good Gym is an organisation that pairs altruistic runners who want to get and stay fit. And as they would say, there's too much lifting of weights in gyms that don't need to be lifted. And so they pair runners up with a motivational coach. But the motivational coach is another 88-year-old man or 79-year-old woman who's actually part of our friendly service. And so the runner visits the 88-year-old man or 79-year-old woman. She or he gets something out of it, the runner gets something out of it too. And they've just received the seed funding that they need to get their idea off the ground in Sheffield. And then finally, Alcove, which is a telehealthcare solution, which may be familiar to some of you, but they've been trialling new technologies and trialling their technology with new cohorts of people in the city. So some great ideas, and ideas that we wouldn't have found and we wouldn't have encouraged to bring forward had we adopted a very traditional procurement approach. And so in terms of where we're going next, well, we'll be having a demo day in Sheffield on the 29th of September. If anybody's interested, you can look at the website, Sheffield Smart Lab, and it'd be great to come in to see some people from here at that, where you'll see those 3 ideas, but also the other 6 ideas, which I've not got time to talk about. But also sort of thinking about where do we go next, and it is entirely coincidental, but it is incredibly aligned with the challenge that Philip said to us earlier on today. Recognise that the challenges Sheffield faces may be slightly different in nuance from some of the other challenges that other cities face, but by and large are probably far more similar than they are different. So things like how do we improve the health and well-being of our population so more people can live meaningful, independent lives, contribute to and share in the economic success of cities. How do we improve educational outcomes? We heard a lot about that this morning, and close both those attainment gaps that exist within cities, but also the attainment gaps that exist within the country. How do we boost skill levels, picking up on the last conversation, in our existing workforce, but also new entrants into that workforce, so that we are the go-to place for high growth, high productivity businesses? These are common challenges that we all share. And when I talked about the gross spending power of Sheffield City Council being £1.4 billion, I sort of tried to tot it up quickly in my head on the train over, which was a little longer than it was kind of like it to have been. And I thought, well, if you put Sheffield, Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, Newcastle, Hull, put your local authority gross spend in there, put some national health spending in there, throw in some city region, the wider city regions as well, I would be amazed if that figure was less than £50 billion. So there's probably in excess of £50 billion being spent in the public sector across the Northern Powerhouse. And so if we could only think about 1% of that, let's stretch it, 5% of that being committed to invest in innovative new solutions. Well, that's £500 million to £2.5 billion. And that's got to be a figure that makes any existing or budding entrepreneur sit up and take notice. And so that's why, building on the success of Sheffield Smart Lab, and very much in the spirit of today's conference, we're now in active conversations with Nesta to think about, well, what does a Northern Powerhouse challenge series look like? And so we can learn from what we've done in Sheffield, and there are some learning points, certainly. It's been a very successful programme, but there's the learning points too. But what does that look like at a bigger scale, where we can provide access to more markets for entrepreneurs? And so if anybody wants to speak to me about either the experience we've done at Sheffield Smart Lab, or is interested in doing something at a bigger scale, something across the Northern Powerhouse, then please do get in touch. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mark. Right, we're going to throw it out to the floor now for questions. Just to set the context, I probably should have mentioned earlier that we do have an agglomeration here, but nevertheless the North West and North East are the second and third worst English regions in terms of the number of companies that are actually involved in innovation. And the top 10 towns and cities were granted per head are all in the south. And the one that always strikes me is Milton Keynes, which many people never think about, but if you look at its numbers for productivity, for innovation, for patents, everyone jokes about not wanting to live there, but it's a success story. And somehow we have to beat Milton Keynes. We shouldn't really be hard, but we haven't managed it yet. So, questions, please. I think go my friend. Yeah. So, chat at the back. I'm going to take one at a time because when you take three, no one ever remembers what the first one was, or they avoid answering it.
Thank you to the panel. Hakim Yadi from the Northern Health Science Alliance. I want to do something a little bit off the wall and put two words together that you don't often hear together: innovation and procurement. And if we were in the North able to do something that actually procured innovation rather than just invested in it, like they do in the defence industry, I think you'd see a greater flurry of companies going towards those sorts of procurement. So if the city was to, for example, procure smart roads, people would innovate in that space. Is there something we can be doing with innovative procurement across the Northern Powerhouse to actually provide access to markets for some of those companies?
Mark, I think that's a little bit what you're doing, isn't it?
It is absolutely what we're doing. We aren't procuring, and my legal colleagues have sort of advised me to steer clear on that word because of some of the implications of it. But in another sense, we are, in that we are giving opportunities to innovative organisations to demonstrate their product and to show us as a £1.4 billion organisation what they can do. In time, that may well lead to procurement opportunities, and I have been advised that it's entirely legal what we're doing, of course. But those companies see the opportunity that they are engaging in a pre-sales conversation with us. And so I would also advise you to have a look at City Mart. So they are an organisation in Spain. They work closely with Barcelona. They actually worked with us on our Sheffield Smart programme as well. And they absolutely, you will find a lot to like in their material. Their whole premise is about opening up procurement, procuring innovatively, and it's based on some of their material that we've done at Sheffield Smart. So being open about the challenge, not tightly specifying the solution that we want, and then seeing where that takes us.
And what are the obstacles to going further than that? As Hakim said, and actually say, right, here's £1 million to solve this problem.
I'm not sure the obstacles are that great. I think there might be some extra bits of process that we would have to put in place to maybe ensure that we marketed and publicised the opportunity as widely as we could have done. But I think it could easily be considered. And one of the thoughts we've also had about where we might go next is saying, could the prize, as well as being an opportunity to demonstrate your product, be a advanced market commitment, or saying that we will be securing £20 million of services at the end of this process?
I think it's important that for devolution to work, we actually, as Northern combined authorities, have to embrace innovative procurement as the only answer to the challenges that we are now being faced with, given where we stand in our health budgets, etc., etc. Greater Manchester's got a £9 billion deficit that we're going to have to tackle, and always talk about, and we have to reduce the cost of public services. Well, the only way we're going to do that is by being innovative, and it's being constantly and agilely, developing our services and thinking in a different way about how we deliver. So I think we have to be much more radical and say we have to really embrace this and think about how we're going to embed it in the culture of public services.
Big corporates do it, yeah. They buy innovation. So why couldn't we? I actually end up in Vodafone through Vodafone's purchase of a small agile service provider in Leaden Street, Manchester, called Yes Telecom. Vodafone's recently bought a small, automated business company called Cobra. Companies do it, so I can't agree. Why not do it? There's a lot we can do ourselves, a lot we can do without, but why not?
So on Milton Keynes, obviously Milton Keynes has the Open University there, which contributes to many of its statistics. So I was Shadow Minister for Innovation previously, and given you're coming from the Northern Health Alliance, I can absolutely understand your concern about innovation and health procurement, because the UK is surprisingly bad at diffusing innovative health solutions, even though we have obviously the greatest health service in the world, and that is a huge challenge. Now, I forget what proportion of UK spend as the public sector, but I think it's about 42%. So obviously government procurement is one of the key levers to drive, or public sector procurement is one of the key levers to drive a more innovative culture, as well as to address the challenges of improving public services whilst reducing costs and spending as public services demand grows. And I think if you're talking about the legal issues, I don't know whether you were looking at the European Union, it's in reference to the European Union procurement directives, but I mean, they have always been over-criticised for their rigidity, and in addition, given our Brexit vote, they may no longer be as relevant as they were. But so the only note of caution I would say is that the difference between innovation implies risks, and company, that's innovation. Innovation is risk. That has risk. That's what things fail and then good things succeed. And companies are probably in a better position to take those kinds of risks. Public sector needs to be able to protect citizens from those risks, because citizens don't have a choice as to where they get their public services from, unlike in the private sector.
I think the risk point is really important. I think the legal barriers are far less than the mindset shifts that are required for implementation. And we've seen that over the last 18 months with Sheffield Smart. Mindsets are shifting. There's an enthusiasm to continue to embrace these ways of doing business.
Okay, some more questions. Michael?
Thank you. Michael Taylor from Manchester Metropolitan University. A few years ago, way before I came to work at this university, I went to San Francisco in Silicon Valley, and we went to see a guy called Professor Jerry Engel at UC Berkeley, as well as going to Stanford. And he said, "Oh, you're from Manchester." He says, "You've got three great things going for you." And one of them you probably don't even realise. The first one, he said, was graphene, which everyone nods and says, "Yeah, we know about that." The second one was something that we've got in this country to incentivise investment by entrepreneurs, called EIS, the Enterprise Investment Scheme. And in these kind of heady environments of sort of clamping down on tax schemes, there's a certain risk that things like that are rather frowned upon as ruses for rich people to save money. But nevertheless, it's a good incentive to encourage investment. And the third thing he said was an ecosystem of fantastic universities, of businesses and capital, which I guess links to the first 2 points. How successful do you think we are at those things, and how well can we rise to that challenge that people like UC Berkeley and Stanford have done so successfully to create a thriving ecosystem in Silicon Valley?
So, to talk about ecosystem, I think it's something that we've actually been relatively poor developing in the north. And I'm a big fan of well-executed accelerator programs. One of the best that I know of is actually Ignite, who started in Newcastle, Tube will know as well. And then they're just running a program now in Manchester. And what I like about them, so when we talk about an ecosystem, what is an ecosystem that brings value to an entrepreneur? It's, can they get access to markets and customers? Can they find mentors and investors? Can they attract the right talent to their business? That's what an ecosystem really means. And I think we have too much fragmentation across our region. Basically, it becomes very hard for an entrepreneur who's in fintech, for example. Can they find customers? Can they find investors who will be interested? You have to do a hell of a lot of networking in order to find the right people. It can be like finding, especially angel investors. It can be a bit like finding, in a haystack. And this is what London has done very well. It's developed that ecosystem so that you can network quite effectively and find the kind of those catalysts that can help you grow your business. I think we need to do that better, and investing in accelerator programs and supporting initiatives like Ignite and support that.
You wouldn't be surprised to say that that I utterly echo when it comes to Ignite. And I have I've visited Ignite. Lots of excellent events and bringing. Also, I thought the few things that you said are absolutely right in terms of what an ecosystem needs talent and the opportunity to attract finance, and but it also needs to have a buzz about it. It also needs to feel that's part of attracting talent. You also need to feel excited about it, and I think that we've got that. I think what we also need, though, is it also needs critical mass, because that becomes a self-accelerating sort of story. And that is when being able to join up ecosystems, if you like, I don't particularly like that word, but whatever, around in Newcastle, Manchester, Leeds, etc., and bring them together, that helps create critical mass, and that's where transport becomes a barrier.
I think from what I see, I think we kind of dip in and dip out of it, whether you use events like today as an example, or things like, Business Rocks in Manchester. So I think we have a go at getting an ecosystem together, but it's never really sustainable. And where I tend to see what you might call ecosystems, it tends to be very, very localised. Like you will have, let's say where I live in Poynton in Cheshire, you will just have the few business people around there and the few students trying to make something work locally in the absence of something else. So I agree with that. We don't really do it very well. I think from my perspective, I'd love to try and find out, is there anything I and we as Vodafone can do to help? Because with our new position now in the Northwest, a lot of what we're doing at the moment is listening and learning and trying to get a grip on, what can we do to help play our part in that transformation. But we haven't quite got the answers yet. But I'm open to ideas and might come different ways.
Alignment of incentives and alignment of pace amongst different players in that, within an ecosystem. And representing part of the public sector, we don't always move particularly fast, and that can be a challenge for other players in that ecosystem. I've had very positive conversations with universities, but sometimes the 3-year research programme where we need an answer to something within 6 weeks is sort of quite hard to work with too. And we all move at our respective paces, so things that we can do to bridge some of those differences, I think is helpful.
Thank you. We've got another question. I'd have to say the media has a role to play as well, because as a lonely northern correspondent of a national newspaper, if you're a digital company in Newcastle wanting to get coverage, it's very, very hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's Liam Critchlow from Manchester City Council. Really, you touched upon a point earlier, I just wanted to pick up on that around the thoughts of the panel on the role of innovation in public sector, given that I think you come in for some heavy criticism when things don't work, and often part and parcel of innovation is a learning process, and there's often sort of failures attributed to that. So yeah, it was just to take the thoughts really on the role of that, and how that will affect innovation in public sector.
Do you have a particular situation in mind when you try something new?
No, I mean just with anything. So any innovative take on anything really, I think often comes in for criticism because it's a change from the norm. I think people quite often become accustomed and attached to the norm. So it's yeah.
So I think some part of the answer is around leadership, and having leadership that will say, take ownership for we're going to be innovative and to communicate that to systems. Corporates have a responsibility to their customers. They will lose customers. If they lose customers, they won't be able to pay their. It's not just the public sector that has to manage the risk of innovation that goes wrong. I think it's just about kind of a cultural shift, a mind shift, and Sheffield's showing that it's perfectly possible, and it is about you pilot it and you do it in the right way. But I think we have to, in the public sector, show leadership and say we're going to be a bit gutsy and ballsy, and it's the right thing to do.
I think it's challenging clearly, and I would struggle to persuade my elected members to stop doing something and try something completely new and untested, and it's going to completely save things, and they would rightly push back and say that they're not going to take that risk. There's ways that those risks can be managed, so you can double run it again alongside whatever else it might ultimately replace. You could pilot it, and I think that it's back to that point about pace. What we've got to do is learn quickly, and if it's successful, grow, and if it's not successful, accept it's not working and stop it. And we don't tend to stop that much. And if it's going to replace something else, then stop whatever it's replacing as well. So I think you can manage and mitigate some of those risks, but you've also got to be prepared to take some risks around pace and growth.
I think the innovation in public sector is really important. If you look at the needs and opportunities that DeVoe brings, it's critical. And if I think from a citizen's perspective, why can't we have a holistic digital view of the citizen? So if let's say a police officer's in a difficult situation, they might need to know that person's health records before using a taser on someone with a pacemaker for argument's sake. That holistic view of the citizen, I think, has a lot to offer the public sector for everyone's benefit. And that's something I think that things like DeVoe need to take really seriously.
Well, I'll come back to that, but I think in terms of innovation, yes, we need to be able to, the public sector needs to be able to take risks. But it's also about confidence. It's about leadership, I agree there, but it's also about confidence. And when you haven't had a pay rise for 5-10 years, when everything that goes wrong in the country is down to the public sector, and when the innovation is only ever sort of seen as coming from the private sector, then it's hard to recruit, keep people with the confidence to go out there and really, introduce innovative changes. I think that's something that GDS, for example, did quite well. Show leadership and recruit and change mindsets. But you need to have that. You need to have that confidence of your front line. Rather than bureaucrats, let's call them innovation warriors. And that takes cultural change and also trust. Now, so your idea of a holistic, a holistic digital view, I think there are measures in the current digital economy bill, which has just had its first reading in the House, which are trying to move towards that. One of the reasons that might be a bad idea, I think one of the moments when I've had the biggest chill down the back of my neck was when, in a meeting of police and crime commissioners and chief constables, and one of them says to me, if I had access to all the data on everybody in the UK, real time, all the time, I could stop crime. It's like, why? Do I believe that's possible? Do I believe it's a good thing? Would it be put in so I think, one reason would be it might be a honeypot where anybody wears cybersecurity. So there are really big digital and data opportunities for public services. There are also big pitfalls and risks, and we do need a more empowered, that's what I'm saying, a more empowered public sector with more investment in it, more entrepreneurial, in order to get the best from these challenges.
Thank you very much. Our time is up, and I think we've had a really good discussion, and hopefully it will continue afterwards. There's some collaboration to be done. We've learned about what's going on, and we've learned about what more could be done. And let's hope that we're sitting here 5 years from now, we'll be ahead of all those measures, not just Milton Keynes, but other places as well. So thank you all very much for coming up. Please give us a